You also wrote you wrote an article about Jim Schwartz, and the quote that you had is, "They don't pay us for the good times." Um, what do you think about Schwartz? And take us through that article.
Yeah, so it's an article that it will be interesting to see if it has a bit longer of a shelf life here because I did write it in December, but that was before Kevin Stefanski got fired, obviously. But I was very curious to talk to Jim Schwartz about how he kept this defense going this year, despite the losing. And also about his desire to possibly be a head coach again. And when I asked him about that, he said it is something he would consider. But I also asked him what he would do differently now. It's been more than a decade since he's been in that seat with the Detroit Lions. And he talked about realizing now that not all head coaching jobs are created equal. And I thought that was really interesting because you look at what happened when the Lions fired him. He had a playoff season. He took over after their 0-16 season and really helped reshape the culture. But then a couple of years later, when they were 7-9, that suddenly was fireable. So to me, it kind of mirrors what happened with Kevin Stefanski in Cleveland. And I think the Browns would be a more attractive job to Jim Schwartz now because that sort of culture changing is already done. And look, I also think it's really important to not change this defensive scheme. I wouldn't touch it. I would not let Jim Schwartz out of the building, whatever that looks like. Obviously, yesterday the Ravens put in a request to interview him for their head coaching job. But me sitting here, I just think this defense is too good. It's a Super Bowl caliber defense. Not many coordinators run systems like Jim Schwartz anymore, including most of the guys who will be top candidates this coaching cycle. A Jesse Minter defense, very different. A Brian Flores defense, very different. Those systems rely much more on zone, much more on two high safeties. The Browns don't really do anything with that. They are a man heavy scheme, and that's Jim Schwartz's bread and butter. So it was a fascinating conversation. I tried to take readers kind of into my seat in this 15-minute interview, and like I said, I mean, I think there's a lot in there. If the Browns ultimately would promote Jim Schwartz to their head coaching job, just about his philosophies, how he was able to accomplish what he was this year with this defense, even in a losing season, and a lot more about sort of retrospective on his career.
Yeah, you know what? I don't dislike the idea of him being the next head coach of the Cleveland Browns. I kind of like it, in fact.